Tonight on HCB Presents Houston Stories, we have tales of Urban Cowboy and the world's largest honky tonk, the legendary Gilley's. We're going to be talking about that tonight. Hello once again, everybody. This is Mike Acosta alongside Leon Beck from Texas Hot Country Magazine. I am so honored to have him here tonight. Leon is an encyclopedia of knowledge about the legendary Gilley's nightclub that used to be in Pasadena, Texas. Leon, welcome on in. I'm so glad to have you here on HCB Presents.
Mike, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me on your show. And thank you so much for your interest in Urban Cowboy and Gilley's and country music. So it's an honor for me to be here to talk about that era, Gilley's, Urban Cowboy, and of course country music, because I live and breathe that.
You do. And if you don't follow Leon is on Facebook. It has a tremendous Facebook page that is always talking about Gilley's lore and all sorts of things. I mean, it is a treasure trove of information and photos. We're going to show some of the photos here tonight during this interview. But I want you to tell some people out there a little bit about yourself, Leon. Give us a little story. I know you're a native Houstonian, and tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, my love for country music goes back to the 50s, because the first artist I remember listening to or heard about was Ernest Tubb, because my daddy used to listen to the Louisiana Hayride, and I remember him talking about Ernest Tubb. And then, of course, Tennessee Ernie Ford came out with 16 Tons, and Johnny Horton, my first country music hero. He had North Alaska, Sink the Bismarck. But I've had a love for country music going back to the 50s. Of course, I listened to Elvis Presley and rock and roll, and of course got into Johnny Cash and all the other Glenn Campbell and all the country artists. But what changed my life was two songs came on the radio. First one was Freddie Hart had a song called Easy Lovin', and I really, really liked that song. And then the big one, Charlie Rich, Behind Closed Doors. And that just like sold me on country music. And I became like really into listening to country music on the radio. And how I got involved in doing interviews, and my degrees in communications, journalism. And so I started doing interviews in 1973. I was going to University of Houston. I worked on the Daily Cougar, the campus newspaper, which at the time was the third largest newspaper in the city. And my first country music interview was with Arch Yancey when KNUZ went country. And I used to listen to Arch Yancey when KNUZ was pop and rock and roll. And so I met with Arch Yancey, and that was my very first country music interview. And it was like another world for me to sit down with a radio legend, Arch Yancey, to do an interview with him about why KNUZ went country. And then when I was working on the Daily Cougar, the very first country music star interview I did was with Lynn Anderson. She just had Rose Garden that came out. And I think the next interview was with Ernest Tubb. And I sat on Ernest Tubb's bus at the Winchester Club in Houston. Some folks may remember the Winchester Club. It was a classic honky tonk. But I sat on his bus. I think I asked him 3 questions, and he just took over the interview, told me the history of country music, told me about Elvis, how he was being groomed to be the next singing cowboy like Roy Rogers and Gene Autry. And all this stuff fascinates me because I love history. And here I am talking to a guy that was living the history of country music. Now, where Gilley's comes in, I used to watch Gilley's Place on Channel 39. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm doing country music interviews. I need to go to Gilley's because they're bringing everybody in. So my first interview at Gilley's, I think, was in 1974. And I started doing country music interviews in 73. So I got to know Sherwood Cryer. And who was Sherwood Cryer? Sherwood Cryer had a club, or he called it a beer joint at Sherwood. He had a beer joint
right there with Sherwood Cryer
on Spencer Highway in Pasadena. And in 1971, he hooked up with Mickey Gilley. Mickey Gilley was just a struggling country music piano player trying to make it in the music business. And he met Sherwood Cryer, and they got together, became partners. In 1971, Shelley's became Gilley's. And so I started going out to Gilley's a couple of years after that. Got to know Sherwood Cryer. First interview with Mickey Gilley was, I think, in 74. Interviewed Johnny Lee. Johnny Lee broke through with Looking for Love. That's Johnny and me. He broke through with Looking for Love from the Urban Cowboy movie. So I started going out to Gilley's and doing lots of interviews with the guest stars who came out there. They booked everybody in country music. It was, artists wanted to play Gilley's. Gilley's was like, and I call it a cathedral of country music, of neon and wood. And everybody wanted to play Gilley's. Now, Gilley's was not built to be the largest nightclub in the world. And what happened as the years progressed, Gilley's got more people came in, and then they expanded it. If you've seen a picture of the club, you can see the wings that were added. But they had like the biggest names in country music, TV show. Mickey Gilley got a recording. And Mickey Gilley never had a big hit record until he did Room Full of Roses in 1974 and got signed to Playboy Records. Yes, Playboy had a record label. And I think Mickey Gilley was the first artist, Room Full of Roses. And, that brought his career, into focus. Then in 1976, what happened in 1976? Changed the world of country music. Sherwood brought in El Toro, the mechanical bull.
50 years ago now.
50 years ago, right. 50 years ago, El Toro came to Gilley's, and everybody just went wild over the mechanical bull. And so the mechanical bull, there were so many things to see at Gilley's, but mechanical bull was like a really big deal. Nobody had a mechanical bull in a honky tonk. So
I would imagine so. There's still not a lot of those.
It's been used to train rodeo riders, but let's talk about how mechanical bull impacted country music. There was a writer from Esquire magazine called Aaron Latham. He came out to Gilley's, and Sherwood called me. It was 1978. Sherwood Cryer called me. He said, Leon, he said, there's a reporter from Esquire magazine walking around the club looking for a story. He's not interested in doing an interview with Mickey Gilley or Johnny Lee. He wants a story about the people who came out to Gilley's. And Gilley's was getting bigger all the time, and the biggest country music stars played Gilley's. And then eventually, Aaron Latham found a story. What was the story? Bud, well, it was Dee Westbrook and Betty. And they met at Gilley's, got married at Gilley's, fought at Gilley's. She wanted to ride the bull, and he didn't want her to ride the bull. And so a lot of the, I'm kind of getting it too far in advance here, but the article came out. All of a sudden, the next thing we knew, Hollywood came to Pasadena. And there was talk about who is going to play Bud, which is due, who's going to play Sissy, which is Betty. And there's a lot of actors came out and actresses, they wanted that role. And one of them is from Houston. To run his picture in the Daily Cougar because he was in drama, and they sent me pictures of him acting. And when I interviewed him several years later,
who was that again, Leon? I think the audio dropped out. Who was that again?
Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid. He was up for the role of Bud.
He was one of the people in consideration, but I interviewed Dennis at Gilley's in '83, and I'll get to that. But Dennis told me that he used to go to Gilley's. As a student at the University of Houston, he would go out to Gilley's. So he was part of that culture. And so he tried out, and it was a big deal to cast that. Somehow, John Travolta ended up being Bud, and Debra Winger ended up being Sissy. And I understand that Debra Winger got a job as a waitress before the movie was started to film, just so she could get a feel of Gilley's. It's a whole new culture. She was waiting tables. She was waiting tables at Gilley's. And then Bud came out, and I said, Bud, John Travolta came out, and he checked everything out. And so anyway, they started filming the movie, and then in 1970, it was 78 when they wrote the article. 79, they started filming the movie, and I was in constant touch with Sherwood Cryer. Now, I was not on the set because I was the media, but I was going out there doing interviews at night. They filmed in the daytime, and I didn't want to. A lot of the journalists got in there because they hid behind walls, they hid in boxes. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do things as a professional. So I was on the phone with Sherwood many times and going out to Gilley's, and I said, Sherwood, Gilley's needs a magazine because, Gilley's is going to be so hot, they need a Gilley's magazine, which eventually there was a Gilley's magazine in a couple of years after that. But the movie came out. Now, Johnny Lee was singing Looking for Love. Now, Johnny Lee found Looking for Love in a cardboard shoebox because there's a lot I'm skipping over, but basically he found Looking for Love, written by two school teachers and a songwriter in Nashville. That song, Looking for Love, was like the song in Urban Cowboy.
Yeah, it was like an anthem for that just kind of defined
that
whole
was
era.
Like the song. Looking for love in all the wrong places. It fit in so well. Mickey Gilley had Stand By Me. The album came out, soundtrack came out with a lot of that music. So that what happened to Gilley's after when the movie came out, Johnny Lee was singing Looking for Love before the movie came out, and it was like la-di-da. In the club. And then when the movie came out, people started going to Gilley's because of the movie. He would sing that song, and everybody rushed the stage. It was like, wow, this is Looking for Love from Urban Cowboy. And Gilley's got so big, it brought, and this is something that you and I discussed, that Gilley's was one of the main tourist attractions in the state of Texas. We worked with, I worked in marketing and promotion for editor of the magazine. I produced a talent show at Gilley's. I handled the media relations, press releases. I handled the celebrities. We had a lot of celebrities would come out to Gilley's, and I would make sure they had a good time. And I handled interviews, etc. I was even interviewed by Japanese radio. Gilley's was worldwide. We had a Japanese radio network came out, interviewed me in Japanese and translated it into English, big in Europe. It was just a monster. And so we worked with the Houston Convention and Visitors Bureau because Gilley's was a selling point for the city of Houston. We would get tons of tour buses that would park in our parking lot. We'd have a rodeo arena. We had live rodeos. We had barbecues, country music, dancing, and just on and on. So in a nutshell, and I was there like all this was going on, and it was amazing. I was working. I went to work for Gilley's in 82 because Sherwood wanted me to go to work for Gilley's. We talked about it for years. 82, I said, I'm ready to go to work for Gilley's. And in 2 weeks after, I was on tour with Alabama, Mickey Gilley, Johnny Lee on the Salem Country Gold Tour. And it's like, it's another world for me.
Yeah.
So
an amazing world.
So I'm going to let you ask me a question.
Well, no, I mean, this is great. It's like you turn on the faucet and it comes right out, and here's all that information, and here are the stories. And there's so many amazing stories about Gilley's. And going back to the movie and talking about John Travolta, who was cast as Bud, he was Vinnie Barbarino, and he had just been in Saturday Night Fever. He was like one of the hottest, youngest actors that was out there who had star power, and they brought him in like Superman to be the centerpiece along with Debra Winger of this movie. Now, one of the things that you were talking about, that as a media person, you were kind of behind the scenes. You didn't want to kind of, there were other media members who were hiding in the walls and trying to get, I guess, some scoops or kind of behind the scenes type of things. But when you watch that movie and you see scenes up and down Spencer Highway, you see inside around the club, it almost seems like, how close do you think that they captured the actual culture of Gilley's in the movie Urban Cowboy? Because it seems like it's pretty realistic to me. It feels like I have known people who are in that movie before personally. Like I've met people who are just natural. They were just in the movie.
Well, the interesting thing about it is that a lot of people who went to Gilley's became extras in the movie. Now, the Sissy's girlfriend in the movie, her name's Jessie. She was the real life girlfriend of the original Sissy, Betty. And she was a natural. So they put her in the movie. Gator Conley, he's the guy that won the dance contest. So he was in the movie, and he was a main local character in the movie.
And he was kicking it up pretty good in the movie, if you remember.
Yeah, he was dancing. I mean, he was a legend at Gilley's. Norman Tucker won the punching bag contest at Gilley's, and he came in third on mechanical bull riding competition. And they use a lot of the real people. They filmed in the daytime, and then the club opened at night for the public, because business as usual. You get the people in, and there are so many. It was very exciting time when Hollywood came to Pasadena, and it changed country music. But what happened when the movie came out? All these radio stations like switched formats to country. KILT, one of the hottest rock and roll pop stations in Houston, after the movie came out or during that time period, they became country. They switched country formats. There were a lot of honky tonks just popping up in shopping center strips. Everybody wanted to, get involved, and Western wear. Everybody wanted to be a cowboy.
Yeah.
Or an urban cowboy. And so one thing that really helped Gilley's was the fact that Westwood One had a radio show that was worldwide called Live at Gilley's. And that was all over the world. People would hear that, and all over the world, and the Armed Forces Network in Europe. And, it was just country music was popular worldwide. And then we did a live radio show first on Keener. I don't know if you remember Keener Radio or not. That
I
goes
had a
back.
very good friend who was a disc jockey on Keener a long time ago.
Uh, so I worked when I first started covering country music. I did a lot with Keener Radio. They opened a lot of doors for me, and so I got to know those people at Keener. And Keener did a live radio show at Gilley's, I think maybe in the late '70s, and then KILT started doing a live radio show. And the one thing that Sherwood Crier wanted, he said, he was almost invisible. Sherwood wanted to be out of the spotlight. He said, it's not about me, it's about Mickey Gilley. It's about promoting Mickey Gilley, promoting Johnny Lee, and promoting Gilley's. And he always came up with ideas and concepts, the Gilley's logo, the merchandise arm of Gilley's. They built a Western wear store inside the club. And if you could put a Gilley's logo on it to sell it, they did it.
Tell me a little bit about the logo. That it's kind of a word mark. It's a really distinguishable look. Do you know anything about how they came up with that design?
One of the people, if I remember correctly, one of the people that actually worked for Sherwood, he had a sign shop. And so I believe one of the people that worked for him or worked for the sign shop created that logo. And then they started they used to sell T-shirts. I think the first thing was bumper stickers. If you go to Gilley's, they put a bumper sticker that you cannot get off. And then I think they started with the bumper sticker and the T-shirts. And then from there, it's just, the ceiling tile had Gilley's logo on it. The stage had Gilley's logo on it. If anybody shot a picture, this was before the internet.
Yeah, they are right there.
Yeah,
you can see them up there on the roof.
But anywhere, if anybody would take a picture with the camera, they would have the Gilley's logo in the background. I love that picture.
That's a great picture.
That dance floor was really big. We're looking at the bandstand, and at the left of the bandstand is the jukebox, and then you have the band bar right on the left of it, and then on the right was my office, somewhere on the right, which you cannot see. And but we had daycare centers would bring out kids in the daytime. And what I did also is, I tried to give dance lessons to these convention groups. But we had daycare centers. They opened at 10 o'clock in the morning, and they were open to 2 o'clock in the morning, 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. People would come in. Part of the entertainment complex at Gilley's had a recording studio. Several major artists cut there. They did the live radio show. The Westwood One show from the recording studio. Willie Nelson cut an album there. A lot of artists use that recording studio. We had a restaurant inside of Gilley's. They call it Gilley's Kitchen. I used to eat there quite a bit.
I would imagine you did.
Steaks and barbecue and pizza and Mexican food and everything.
Oh, you're speaking my language.
And then they had the Western Wear store. They had like 2 or 3 mechanical bulls. And then something big happened around 81 or 82. Sherwood always wanted to build, my understanding, a rodeo arena. So he made so much money off that mechanical bull. He bought the rights to the mechanical bull, and they built a rodeo arena. Well, the rodeo arena could hold.
He actually bought there were rights.
Right. He owned the patent on the mechanical bull.
Really?
And then he would manufacture the mechanical bull. He would sell them all over the world. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
But then around 81 or 82, he built his rodeo arena. Now, this rodeo arena could probably hold 10,000 people. The club could hold at least 7,000. Can you imagine? That's a small city. They had things going on in the rodeo arena. I remember, George Strait played the rodeo arena. George Strait.
He just happened to play there.
Well, George Strait started playing the club before the rodeo arena. I knew George Strait was going to be big when the last time he played the club, they had policemen all around the club to protect him from, I guess, I guess the girls or whatever.
He's a
But
little
they had,
popular with the ladies.
in the rodeo arena, they had bullfights, tractor pulls, boxing, wrestling, bluegrass concerts, rock and roll concerts. They had Neil Young in the rodeo arena. I got a Neil Young poster somewhere.
Hmm.
Uh, and they had country music. I remember when Dwight Yoakam played Gilley's, the first time he played Gilley's, he opened for Loretta Lynn in the rodeo arena.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was before he was not, his record label sent me a Dwight Yoakam album on an independent Oak label. And it wasn't even complete. He got a record deal and added some songs to that. But they had so much going on in the rodeo arena. And then they had the publishing, they had the magazine, they had a whole promotion arm for Gilley's. They had music publishing companies, just all kinds. It's an entertainment complex.
Yeah,
And
it's like an entertainment and marketing
it
machine for
was,
Gilley's.
and Sherwood would always think of ways to promote, promote, promote Gilley's and Mickey and Johnny and the club. So it was the best job I've ever had. I
Do you think
loved
that
it.
there would be any Billy Bob's Texas had it not been for Gilley's?
No, they no, that's true. They said they're the world's largest honky tonk, and they are now, I'm sure. But I don't think they could put in live rodeo. They had rodeos on Saturday nights at Gilley's, real rodeos.
Yeah.
And but it's like I said, 10,000 people could fill up the arena and 7,000 the club. Uh, so it was, I got a lot of fantastic memories. Now, eventually, Mickey Gilley and Sherwood Crier had a falling out as business partners, and so the club closed. After the club closed, I talked to Sherwood. I said, Sherwood, when you and Mickey broke up your partnership, but I want to try to keep the Gilley spirit alive. I want it alive for the Gilley's club family, meaning the musicians, the singers, the bands, the waitresses, the bartenders, the dancers, the fans, anybody and everybody, because it's so strong. Gilley's is so strong. I want to try to keep it going. That was in 1980. It was early 1990s. I did 22 Urban Cowboy reunions, and I was a consultant on the one in Galveston. They did a 50-year anniversary of the opening of Gilley's. And now there are a lot of people, they caught on, and they're doing Urban Cowboy reunions. And Mickey Gilley and Johnny Lee did the Urban Cowboy reunion tour all over the country. And, Johnny Lee was established as a country star. Mickey Gilley was established as a country star, and the club kept getting bigger and bigger. And it was just, to me, it was just a cultural phenomenon. It changed the entire landscape. And I've said that before, but it made an impact in Texas. It made an impact in Houston, and it made an impact in country music.
I
Yes.
think you were born at the right time to do exactly what you have done throughout your entire life and what you continue to do right now. You talk about the early days, Ernest Tubb, the early days of rock and roll, Elvis coming in. That made a tremendous impression on you. And then I think that experience, building the enthusiasm and the love for country music that you have, really push that passion that you needed to have when Gilley's came around, when Shelley's became Gilley's, and prepare you for the entire Urban Cowboy lore and everything beyond that, because I think you really helped take things to the next level. The newsletters, all the PR, the interviews that you were doing. I think you were born at the right time. It was supposed to always be you that was going to be there on scene. It was a divine prophecy here that you
It
were going
was
to be
just,
involved with Gilley's.
and what I took away from all of that, memories. I've
Yeah.
got so many great memories. People that I still have to this day, artists, country music artists, and I just didn't work. I did a lot of freelance writing for some of the biggest country music magazines in America, who actually worked for Gilley's. But Sherwood and I, we talked a lot, and he was a visionary. He didn't start out to make Shelley's a beer joint. He used to call Gilley's a beer joint. Well, it was much more, but he didn't build a big honky tonk. He built and gradually, like I think it was early 60s, and then it gradually got bigger. The TV show, Mickey Gilley, Johnny Lee, Urban Cowboy, the Bull, the merchandise, all of that was just nobody was doing that.
Yeah, and I think that's where innovation comes in any type of industry, right? No, you always hear that story. Well, nobody was doing this, and you come in, you have carte blanche. There's a lot of creativity, and you have the people who really have the passion for it, and this amazing story and era and culture just emerges, and it's just intertwined into the DNA of the Houston area, the Houston region. And I know that it was in Pasadena, but it really it was all over Texas and all over the world, like you were saying.
It drew a lot of people in, and there's so much interest in Gilley still because Urban Cowboy is on television constantly. Yeah. And a lot of people were not even born when Gilley's was open, and they really wanted to go to Gilley's. Now, there are other Gilley's across the country, about 3 or 4 Gilley's, because like I once other Gilley's name on it. It's hard to create the atmosphere. You can't, it's the people that made Gilley's. That everybody, there were so many characters at Gilley's. Like Steve Strange was the bullmaster at Gilley's.
Oh, yeah.
And when they made the movie, they had a character play Steve Strange, actor named James Gammon that looked a lot like Steve Strange.
He was a cool actor too. He always looked like he was just himself and everything.
And then Steve Strange was played in the movie as Sam Strange.
Yeah.
Steve's non-existent real life brother. There was no Sam Strange in real life, but a lot of people, like I said, they went to Gilley's and they were in the movie. Now I did interview with Barry Corbin. He played Uncle Bob.
Yeah,
and he looked so natural.
That's what I mean by like, I feel like I've known these characters in real life. Like they seem so realistic to Houston and Texas. It feels like they're not a Hollywood creation.
Well, see, Uncle Bob is an actor.
Sure.
And when he took John and the family to Gilley's, and I said, I asked Barry, Barry, when was the first time that you went to Gilley's? He said, the very first time I stepped in Gilley's was in that scene in the movie.
That's awesome.
And it's like, really? Because it looked like, hey, this is Gilley, that's Mickey Gilley, and of course.
Yeah, because that's what he was doing in that scene. He's like, there's Mickey Gilley right up there. I mean, that's amazing to know that that's his first time in the club.
Mickey Gilley, was on the bandstand and Johnny Lee was singing. And it's an interesting story about Johnny Lee and Urban Cowboy movie that he told me a while back, because I interviewed Johnny Lee a lot of times and Mickey Gilley, and I get all kinds of stories. But Johnny Lee was telling me about music degree or be at Gilley's. He was, and Johnny Lee was on stage singing Cherokee Fiddle. And then I think Irving Azorf was thinking, I like that song. I would like to have that song in the movie. So Johnny Lee gets off the stage. Irvin walks up to him to say, I'm making a movie and yada, yada, yada. And Johnny told me he just blew him didn't know who it was. He found out who it was. And then so he was in the movie, you know, and then he found Looking for Love, and you know, it changed so many people's lives. You know, so it wasn't for, I don't think you would, you wouldn't be doing an interview with me.
Maybe not. Maybe we would have somewhere.
I don't. I'm always
around, maybe.
I'm always reluctant to do interviews, but this is exciting for me because I love to talk about Urban Cowboy and Gilley's and country music. But usually I try to avoid them because I'm on the other side. When you're in control of this interview because you're asking the questions, and then
if you got the stories, you're the storyteller here.
Yeah, you answer the questions, and it's like, you know, you're in control. I'm not in control, so I'm going to give it
question. I do have a question. So I was talking a little bit about how realistic Gilley's is, and you know, the Bud Sissy characters are based on real people, and it's a real environment, right? It's been Hollywood, you know, kind of the whole creation of it. But tell me a little bit about the Wes Hightower character.
The Wes Hightower character is one character that I don't know anything about.
That's a Hollywood creation, 100%.
No, right? I think there was a guy that came to Gilley's that had a record. Hollywood threw a lot of their Hollywood magic in there.
Yeah,
you know, the core of the movie's true. You know, boy meets girl, twang twang, like the Esquire magazine said. But I don't know that much. I never met Wes. I don't know. He was somehow involved in Gilley's. I think he worked there, but I can't really comment on him because I don't know the story about Wes.
Yeah. What about Pam? I mean, we got to mention Pam. Was there a certain element of many Pams that were at the club?
Well, see, when the movie came out, Dew and Betty had already broken up, and he was married to a girl. I think her name's Jan, and he may have met her at Gilley's. I don't really think there was a real life Pam.
Yeah.
You know, the end of the movie was great. You know, Looking for Love and Bud and Sissy and Riding Off to the Sunset. But in real life, when the movie was being made, or even when Esquire magazine came out, I think they had already broken up. You know, but the core of the movie was, yes, boy meets girl, mechanical bull. I always look at El Toro, the mechanical bull, as the third actor in the movie.
I agree.
Because the movie was built around him, and then you had all the other characters. But yes, a lot of people don't realize that it's inspired by a true story.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. It just seems so realistic. I think that you look at movies and you say, that's a little too far fetched, but it really isn't. It seems very realistic. You drive out there off of 225 today, and you see a lot of the same type of things, you know, that are out. Besides Gilley's not being there anymore, but you kind of see that there's still people out there who are working at the refineries, who love country music, who love to go to whatever club it is or listen to country music. That has not changed in the past 40, 50 years, you know, that has passed since the movie has opened and all this. So it feels like it's still there in the Houston DNA.
Yeah, country music has grown so much. I mean, over the years, I remember interviewing Barbara Mandrell, and she was telling me that she would pull up to a red light and roll up her windows so nobody would know she was listening to country music. You know, country music has taken over, and really. You know, there's so many country music superstars now. You know, and look at George Strait. When George Strait, I remember whenever I was doing an interview with George Strait, his road manager walked in, and I talked to his road manager, and I said, "Oh, I got an interview set up with George Strait. When will he be here?" He said, "Leon, George Strait is standing next to you playing the pinball machine." with the baseball cap. Now, you take away the starched jeans, the belt buckle, the boots, the hat. You didn't even know that's George Strait.
Yeah, that's his uniform.
But yeah, I mean, and I would know whenever we had when Randy Travis played Gilley's. Nobody knew Randy Travis. We would get them when they very first came out. When Randy Travis played Gilley's, he stood at the door shaking hands, introducing himself to the
That's
people
cool.
who came in. The next time Randy Travis played Gilley's, and this is how fast you can get. The next time he played Gilley's, Time Magazine was at Gilley's to do a photo shoot on Randy Travis. So they were shooting Randy Travis behind the bar. They brought me out to stand for the lights, and they set the lights on me. And then I stepped out of the way, and they brought Randy Travis in, and he became, I remember interviewing the Judds. I did I had access to about everybody that came to the club, to do interviews with them. And one of my, talking about favorite artists, when I first interviewed Tammy Wynette, and she played Gilley's also. I don't think I sent you that picture of me and Tammy, but
no, I didn't happen to get the one of Tammy Wynette.
Well, I got so many.
There's so many other ones that you.
I got to tell you,
the Tammy Wynette picture.
I got to tell you about my biggest night in country music.
Tell me. That's what I want to hear.
It was the Astrodome Country Music Classic.
There you go.
They had about the legends, and this was 1974. And back at that time, I didn't have to go through publicists and record labels and lawyers and managers and road managers and booking agents. I just walked around, see someone I want to talk to, and they'll talk to you, because nobody was standing in line to talk to these people 55 years ago. So there's one night at the Astrodome, I interviewed, I'm trying to remember all the people. I think I'd mentioned some names to you. I did an interview with Dottie West, Marty Robbins, Ray Stevens, Donna Fargo, Billy Crash Craddock, Tammy Wynette, and a few others. And one of the guys I interviewed, Christopherson, was there, but I did not interview Chris Christopherson, but a band member named Billy Swan.
Oh.
Billy Swan had a song called I Can Help.
I remember that.
It was one of the biggest songs in the world, and Billy was playing in Chris's band. Love Billy Swan. But there's so many artists out there that I really, and it is great for me to be able to interview my heroes.
Yeah.
Because, you grow up listening. I interviewed Hank Williams Jr. when he was wearing sequins and rhinestones.
Yeah, before he had that other look.
Yeah, before, then he went, kind of Southern rock or boogie woogie, whatever he did. But, he had Jerry Rivers in his band. Jerry Rivers used to play with Hank Williams, the Drifting Cowboys. And he had the Duca Paducah in on the show too. But, whenever I first started doing this, I was just a kid, and these were like legends. These were heroes, and they all had stories, and they were all set down. A couple of quick stories here with Barbara Mandrell. The first time I interviewed Barbara Mandrell, she was playing Hoffine's Pavilion with Merle Haggard. And she was just so sweet that she introduced me to her family. She grew up, she was born in Houston, St. Joseph's Hospital, Christmas Day, 1948. I said, where did you live in Houston? She said, we lived off of Telephone Road. I don't think a lot of people know that, but I interviewed her several times. And the last time I think I interviewed her, she was playing the Houston Rodeo. I went to, I think, the Astroworld Hotel to do an interview with her. And she thanked me for taking my time to go do an interview with her. And she was on television with the Mandrells.
That's classy.
And that made me feel she would take her time to tell me, thank me for taking my time. But she had like this television show, and hit records and everything. And she said every year they count how many interviews they do, how many cover stories they do, because that meant so much to her. And but there's so many stories I can tell you.
There's a ton of stories, and you are a treasure trove of them. Like I said at the top of the show, and we're heading towards the end here, and I want to go back, and we're going to have more stories from you, and I want to include more of these because this is an important part of Houston history, I think. And like I said, I'm going to have to emphasize it again. I think you were born at the right time because you had the proper appreciation, the respect for the industry, the artists. You call them your heroes, and I think that they see that same energy when you approach them, and they naturally just open up and they talk to you. And I think that that's really important because there's a lot of people that would want to talk to these superstars, these giants of country music, but maybe they feel a little bit more comfortable with you because they know that you're very genuine in your approach. Now, today, like I mentioned, you have a very great Facebook page, and anybody out there watching, follow Leon Beck on Facebook, and do you have another page too, as well?
I, I've got a Texas Hot Country magazine and an Urban Cowboy page and my
That's right.
Leon Beck page, but I really focus on I think like I've had 20,000 views today or plus, and it's fascinating that people like to go to my page because my page is all about Elvis Presley, Urban Cowboy, Gilley's, country music, movies. I've got a very safe page. Nothing controversial on my page. And I've lots of pictures of country music stars and a lot of pictures of Gilley's and Urban Cowboys. So I welcome anybody to come to my page. And also I have a lot of Gilley's memorabilia that I'm putting on Marketplace and Facebook now. I've got what I call the holy grail of Gilley's, the Gilley's Club poster that I understand someone told me that someone flew in to Houston to buy a Gilley's Club poster for $2,500, auctioned off for like $1,200. But I have a few of them, but I don't charge that. But I've got magazines, newsletters. I've got 50 years of memories. So anybody want to contact me, send me a private Facebook message and follow me on Facebook. I can tell you what I have if you're a Gilley's fan.
Yeah, and you've also posted, you're a member of the Houston Community Group, which is a Houston City Beat group, and you've posted some of those photos and pieces of history in there.
I love your group.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate you being in there and sharing that information, and that's part of why that group exists, is to share stories like what you have there. So, Leon Beck, I want to say, thank you for being here tonight and on the HCB Presents Houston Stories, because these are true Houston stories. These are stories that everybody should know, especially people who love country music, who love the lore of Urban Cowboy and Gilley's. It's a pleasure to have you on tonight.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, you broke up there, but thank you. I can't tell you how much this means to me. I did an interview with CMT in 2015 called Urban Cowboy, The Rise and Fall of Gilley's. And I was so reluctant to do that interview. They had John Travolta and Charlie Daniels and Mickey and Johnny, a lot of the movie people. But I did that interview, and after I finished the interview, I felt real good. I was apprehensive because, like I said, I'm on the other side of the screen here. But I'm glad I did the interview. I always love to talk about Urban Cowboy and Gilley's and country music. And you did a great job asking me questions too.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that because it's a great conversation. It's a lot of subject matter that I love to talk about. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight.
Well, thank you so much.
That's Leon Beck, the history maestro of Gilley's lore. And I mean anything about Gilley's, this man knows it. And going back to new country music from he was a little bitty boy here in Houston all the way up until now. Follow him on Facebook. He has an immense amount of history to share that is entertaining to you out there. So for Leon Beck, I'm Mike Acosta. Once again, thank you for joining us tonight on HCB Presents Houston Stories. And until next time, so long, everybody.